So how do we measure up? How does South Africa measure up against a country that was quite backward in 1948? So when the Nationalist Party took power in South Africa, South Korea started its economic growth. Look where they've gone. It's actually quite mind-boggling when you look at it. In fact, they have a population of roughly the same as ours. They have a gross domestic product of 1.5 trillion, which is 3 times here. They're ranked the 15th largest economy in the world. South Africa is still not doing badly at 24. They, most importantly, export 548 billion. We export 106 billion. They don't have the natural resources that we have here, right? They have an unemployment rate of 3.8% compared to whatever your number is. Minus all of those smart, wonderful people from Zim and Malawi and the Congo, and gotta love them. And then, you know, ease of doing business, EODB. You know, South Africa is ranked 25th. They're ranked up around 8 now. And that's, you know, with all the languages and culture, ease of doing business with the Koreans. Gross per capita, again, you know, they're 3 times what it is here. Poverty levels, you know, they have quite a large percentage of their population, surprisingly, lives in what they call that poverty level, right? We have 31%, it's probably higher than that, but they're around 15%. You know, they have a labor force of 25 million. We have a labor force of 18 million. We wish it was 36 million or whatever, but you know, it's a big problem. But the most telling number is right there at the bottom. So 90% of matriculants in South Korea go on to tertiary education. And I doubt it's 15% when you think about the dropout rates in the universities here. Except for, I think, GIBS and University of Pretoria is phenomenal, right? So what differentiates South Korea, in my view, is long-term master planning. They really do have a vision. They have a vision about nanotechnology, green technology. They have a highly centralized planning mechanism. They have a lot of participation. The education institutions actually play an ombudsman role. Education institutions are very, very influential in South Korea. And of course, they have large conglomerates, so there's, you know, a lot of centralization and control of the economy. There's obviously a very strong shared identity and culture, a lot of common thought. You know, they're fairly well programmed over there, very compliant. They have a world-class education system, you know, big focus on math, science, and engineering to drive that output of engineers, people that can work in building advanced nuclear reactors and large ships and sophisticated transportation systems and dams. And these are what they're not building it in South Korea. They're going to go build this in the developing countries. I go there every year to an advanced postgraduate program at the College of Engineering, and I lecture there for a week. And all of the students that come in that are there, they come from all over the developing world. They come from Vietnam, Nigeria, they come from Peru, so what they spend, the Korean government spends about $6 billion a year paying for the best and the brightest students from around the world in developing countries to come to Korea and to get postgraduate education at their cost. The idea being the future leaders are going to be the future buyer specifiers for large contracts that they're going to be able to execute on. So they want to create a cultural attachment, a cultural affinity. I mean, this is enlightened progressive leadership, right? This is people thinking ahead, thinking long-term, and having an infrastructure in place where they can do that and track and measure the outcome. They're a manufacturing-driven economy. That's all they care about, is how do we create, you know, we'll fund anything that we can build back in South Korea. They have very strong export-oriented mindset. They don't have a huge domestic market. So they are very export-minded. They become very adept. And you think about who you know, LG and Samsung, for up until about a year or two ago, There was not a single marketer in that organization that wasn't South Korean, that wasn't Korean. So they would send their marketers all over the world to learn and get knowledgeable and understand the markets, and then come back and share that knowledge back in their home country, versus what other people do, which is to recruit locals. But it's not to say they don't recruit locals, it's just that they make sure that their people get indoctrinated into the local markets. And then, of course, public-private sector, big synergies, and obviously a strong conglomerate, the tribals. So then again, what distinguishes South Africa, and I'd like to get your views on this. You do have a diversified economy, right? We're very, think about it, ingenuity in face of adversity, inspirations overcoming limitations. That's the story of Africa, right? You think about what's going on in this continent. We are just remarkable, the population groups in this country, at coming up with ingenious solutions. Despite all of the bureaucracy, the corruption, the things that you have to deal with in Africa, you've got people who can do things with a lot less resources. You've got an entrepreneurial, informal economy, which we have a hard time sizing and figuring out how big is that informal economy. Mobile has driven, the growth of that that informal economy in big ways. Very complex society, multi-dimensional society, natural resources, very rich in natural resources. We're a global destination. South Africa has a huge opportunity. If you look at the growth, how many of you have noticed how many Chinese travel groups are coming to South Africa? It's phenomenal. And the growth of that Chinese travel market is why Baidu just spun off a travel booking and it just went public on the NASDAQ, and they got a huge 89% increase in stock price in the first day because everybody's looking at the Chinese travel market. And you think about the new middle class in China, and they all want to go out and get experiences abroad, right? And South Africa has got a great place, a great destination to capitalize on that. And regional leadership, we should be, although some people tell me, some of these are large solution providers, that Nigeria and Kenya are starting to become much more seen as potentially displacing us as the point of entry to Africa. So, we've got to step up to the game here in South Africa to be able to compete with new contenders within the African context from a country standpoint. And then, English language skills. So we've got probably some of the best call center operations here. When I call Lufthansa, I end up talking to the folks in the Western Cape, and, superb service, really cross-culturally adept. When I call American Express and I go to India, very different customer experience completely.